Well, this video is for all of our viewers who asked about what about doweling jigs. Hello everyone, Colin Canet here for Woodworkweb. Not long ago we did a number of videos using the Craig jig, and a number of you emailed me and messaged me and made comments about what about a doweling jig. And I thought that's a really good idea. Let's have a look at a doweling jig. Now I expect people are going to have a lot of questions about this, so I'm going to cover off as much stuff as I can throughout this video. Now I'll admit I'm a little bit new at this doweling thing, but I'm really getting to enjoy it. When they sent me this, they give you a book of instructions, which is handy, but the other thing they send is this little, it's a color brochure, and I'm finding it really useful because when you go through, it shows all of the different configurations in color of all the different components that you use for putting different pieces of wood together. So I'm going to use this as my kind of cheat sheet for today. The one thing I'm always concerned about, and as woodworkers, aren't we always obsessed with strength? All the joints got to be strong. No, not always really. But they thought of this as well, and on the back of their little brochure that I just showed you, they actually have an independent test from Michael Campton from Woodworking Magazine, did a test on a number of things, and he found that using the 5 dowels, 890 pounds per square inch. That's huge. You could park a vehicle on a coffee table with strength like that. The next strongest is a routed mortise and tenon at 680 pounds. So it really is a very strong joint. Now recently, if you've been following, you know that we've done some pocket hole projects. And this is a great system. It's really different than dowels. And a lot of people don't like it. And a number of you commented on it leaves these holes. And yes, it does. And yes, you can buy these little fillers and push them in there and hopefully get matching wood. And if you don't, there can be a difference when you stain it or dye it. So for some people, it's just not the ideal joint. And on occasion, not very often, but once in a while, you'll crack a joint. And that's just the nature of screws if you don't clamp it down properly. So the alternative to that is using dowels and hiding all of this inside. Now before we get started talking about the doweling jig, let's talk about the dowels for a second. This one that I'm showing you is a plain dowel that you would typically purchase from the hardware store. We don't use that. Instead, we have a better alternative. We prefer to use these what are called fluted dowels, and these are commercially prepared, and they come in a few different sizes. What we have right here is 1/4 inch, and this is typically for using woods that are 3/4 of an inch or less, or actually less than 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, and so on. These are 3/8 size, therefore using in 3/4 of an inch wood or more. And the reason that we like these fluted dowels, there's a couple of reasons. The first one is because they put this fluting in here. If you're using glue in a dowel, which you typically are, it allows the glue to ease up into these flutes. And because there's more surface area here, you get a really strong bond of glue. The other thing, the manufacturer of the jig that I'm going to be using today provides a slightly undersized drill bit, which means when any of these these dowels go in, they actually form a very tight bond. So they really make a nice, snug, very accurate fit. And you'll see that in a little bit. So to get started, let's have a look at this little doweling jig. This is by a company called Dalmax. You'll be able to see that on there. I'm super impressed by the quality of this. It's absolutely, it's unbelievably accurate. And there's a couple of versions that they have. They have something called a Classic, and they have another one called the Junior. And basically the Junior doesn't include some of these little accessories. And when you look at these, you kind of go, well, am I going to really need the accessories or not? And here was my idea. I figured that once you get into doing a project, something's going to happen. You're going to want to do something, and if you don't have the right components, you end up having to order them anyway, and by the time you get finished, you probably have spent more by getting the right one that does the job in the first place. And I have to say, I'm really falling in love with this whole concept of the doweling. Now, we're not going to show every configuration, but we're going to show some ideas, so you get some ideas of how this works and what this looks like. One of the things that I really like is I can replace these. I've got 3/8 in here right now. I can replace these with 1/4 inch, and I have some right here. There's some replacements, so I can change sizes on that pretty simple. The whole jig is expandable, and you can see that. That's very well thought out. What I particularly like is if you look on the edge, you'll notice if you look closely, there's a little check mark right there, and there's another one on the other side. And the purpose of this check mark, when you have a look at the operating manual, is that this is how you line up in the wood, and we're going to show you how to do that in a little bit here. So this is what the doweling jig looks like, and it's, as I say, it's got all sorts of different components, and we're going to be showing you how to use some of them and how this thing works. Now, the first thing we're going to start off with today is a really simple joint. We're going to just join this end grain to this long grain here. I'm going to put a little check mark there and another one there, just so that you can see. And the reason we do that is because, remember the check point on the bottom here? What I want to do is I want to line this up exactly. This piece of metal here wants to line up precisely with this check mark here. So we're just going to drill 3 holes. Let's put a little more speed in there. Now, to drill the faceplate, and there's the the check mark that I made, we've taken off one of these sides here because now we need to be flat. So all we do is line up again the check mark with the check mark, because that's the sides that we want, the side we want to align to. And in this case, because there's no way of clamping that, in this case we need to make a manual clamp. So I'm just going to use this and manually clamp the jig to my piece of wood, and I may have to realign that up there. Oh, the other thing that I want to do is, because I'm drilling into end wood, you'll notice that the drill is actually going to go too deep. So I'm actually going to, there's a couple things you could do. You could put a little bit of a spacer in there if you want a little piece of wood. In this case, I'm just going to adjust this collar, because I just remembered that's going to go all the way through there. So I'm just going to readjust this collar for a second. Okay, let's check our handiwork here. We'll put some dowels in there. Nice snug fit. And check mark to check mark, and that goes in there, and that's a nice, real nice tight fit. That's ready for gluing. We're going to take this same piece that we just made, and we're going to adapt it to, if you could imagine, this is a 4x4. This is 4 inches wide, but it's only 2 inches or so deep, but that doesn't matter for the purposes. Now, you probably saw all of these pieces here before, and we're going to show you what these are for. And basically, we spin this out like this, and these fit in here, and that expands this jig so that we can do wider pieces. And we just put those in there like that, snug that down. goes out like that, and that one goes in there. And when we snug that down, that should go exactly to 4 inches. We can just make 3 holes. Okay, let's have a look and see what that looks like. Take our check point, and that could be a table leg. Now, that joint is, there's a bit of dirt in there, a bit of sawdust in there. There you go. And you can see that's a nice tight joint. So that could be a table leg. So now that we've done this joint and we see how well this aligns, if we think back to the last project that we did, which was the entryway tableway, and we wanted to make legs. So this was the leg, and this is the top of the leg, and we wanted to put an apron on the top, but we wanted to have a little bit of a reveal. So we wanted the apron to sit back a little bit, just so we get this little bit of wood in here that gives it a little bit more of some angles in here where light catches it, and it just makes it more appealing. The guys from the jig maker, Delmax, have actually thought of that. So I'll show you how to set that up on this. It's really simple. So on this jig, we talked about the check marks on each side, but this is the face side. So to do that, all we need to do, look at, they actually even thought of a little reveal piece. And in the jig that I ordered, the Classic, it comes with this little reveal piece. So you just put that in there. Now the other thing is this is a little bit wider, so I need to put one of the extensions in, and that just goes like that. Now we clamp that to and there is our apron, and it already has the reveal built in. And if you want a bigger one, of course, you could double that up, or you could even make one a little bit wider than that. But there's a reveal right there, already built in. One of the questions I still get on our video on how to make picture frames is, how do you join picture frames? And today we're going to look at how you can actually use doweling to make a great solid joint on picture frames. Now, because we're doing picture frames, we don't need the strength of a 3/8 dowel, so I've changed the drill guides to 1/4 inch. Now, the other thing in doing this is, the one thing I forgot to tell you about these fluted dowels, they're all 1.5 inches long, which means ideally you want about 3/4 to go into each side. So because I've switched to the smaller drill, I just want to check quickly to make sure that it's set properly, and it's very easy to just butt this up against the drill guide and then just use a piece of 3/4 inch stock to make sure it goes deep enough, and that's just about perfect. So we're ready to go and start drilling. Okay, let's check those and see how they line up. You need to make sure that you don't have any wood on here, because any chips or anything, because that will of course prevent your wood from coming together nicely. And we put that together there. And look at that. A nice, tight. Now that's perfect. That's all ready for clamping, or for gluing. I guess clamping and gluing. That's going to need a little bit of clamping there, but what a great tight fit for picture framing. Okay, cleared all the chips away. Let's test these and see how these are going to come together. Oh, tight fit. There we go. That's perfect there. Get these chips out. There you go, the perfect door. All it needs is a little bit of glue and clamping, and it's probably, yeah, it's actually perfectly aligned too. So, yep, there you go. Now, if you don't have a doweling machine like I do, you can still use this little doweling jig to get perfect joints on your glue ups. And the way that works is, of course, you first check to make sure you've got a nice clean line here, but often these boards are like this. Now, these aren't so bad because they're pretty short, but the way you use this for glue ups and getting perfect alignment is this. You set your boards up like this, and every so far along, in this case I'm going to go about 8 inches or so, which is about here and about the middle, and then another one at the end. So I'm only going to do put 3 dowels in, but now that I've got them marked in 3 different places, and I'm also going to, just for fun, going to mark the face, because remember, we want the faces need to match on the dowel. So I'm going to put this, remember this is the face side because the adjustable screw sides are on the other, and I'm lining up the back with the little check mark exactly right on the line that I just drew. And I'll snug that down. And I'm only going to put in 1 dowel, or 1 hole, and then I'm going to move to the next one. Now, if I've done this right, running out of dowels here, that should line up perfectly. Look at that. Now, there you go. That's a perfect alignment. So you wouldn't even there's really even nothing there to sand. That's a perfect alignment. All it needs is some glue and clamp, and you've got perfectly aligned boards. Well, that's about all I can share with you today, except that this little doweling jig from Dowelmax was a complete surprise. What a great quality tool. I really enjoyed using it. I'm going to be doing some builds in the future using this, some good quality, some really nice joints that you can really make some good quality builds and furniture and things with. If you haven't already subscribed, we ask you to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook. No, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. I get that right one of these days. I'm Colin Canet for Woodworkweb. Thank you for watching.